In your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips as sweet as candy, its taste is on my mind. Girl, you got me thirsty for another cup of wine. Got a bug from you, girl, but I don't need no cure. I just stay a victim if I can for sure. All the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. All the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I'm hooked on a feeling, and I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I said I'm hooked on a feeling, and I'm high on believing Oh yeah, life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. Oh yeah, they say life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. Oh yeah, they say life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. So let it rock. Oh yeah, they say life goes on long after the
gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright. Good evening. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright. Good evening. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright. Good evening. Alright, we're gonna try to get started. If everyone wants to take a seat. Alright.
Hi, thank you, everyone. As Bristol system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone. As a company system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone.
I was hired by
system designers. Hi, thank you, everyone. Point that they don't yield any flow rates within a matter of 4 to 6 weeks during the warmer parts of the month because they're so impinged with point that they don't yield any flow rates. Right now, there's a little pump house that kind of looks like a triangle at the parts of the month because they're so impinged. Well, unfortunately, they don't yield any flow rates. Some properties in a matter of pump house that kind of looks like a triangle at the parts of the month. They like to pump it up large. Well, unfortunately, they're very important around in seawater house that don't like a triangle at the parts of the month. They like to pump it up there and large. Well, unfortunately, they're very minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle at the parts of the month. They like to pump it up. Not only, well, unfortunately, but they're way down. Very minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle at the parts of the month. They like to pump it up. Not only, well, unfortunately, but these guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle at the parts of the month. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. Not only, relatively, the emissions guys are minimized around in seawater house that don't like a triangle. They like to pump it up. They did single lines to each of the labs. So what happens is the mussels that are also in the suction line start getting in the discharge lines, and they start, growing in there and collapsing the flow down to almost nothing. So we need to address that situation for them too. So originally, that seawater system was supposed to deliver about 550 gallons a minute per pump, and they have 2 pumps there. Well, in actuality, because of all the problems they have about a daily average flow of running those pumps full speed of about 300 gallons a minute. And that, although it sounds like a lot to you, it's not a lot to research, because what you're trying to do is maintain these animals in a near ambient, what we call ambient ocean conditions. So it's like these animals are living in the ocean, but yet they're in a tank. You're trying to flush any nitrogen compounds that are building up, any sediment that's building up. In some cases, they are actually taking in food, natural phytoplankton that's found in the ocean, and using it as a food source to grow. So as a scientist, it's ideal, the more water you flow through the system, the better off you are. Talking about thermal impact. note there, right now, Northeastern does not add any significant heating or cooling to the water compared to the volume of the water. There might be a few individuals who are playing with the 5 or 10 gallons a minute of seawater, but it's negligible. And as Briscoe alluded to, there was what they call a core mix model, which is a very sophisticated model to determine how much temperature rise is in a given receiving body of water based on the flow that's coming back to it, the effluent. And it was really negligible, and it wasn't determined there was any impact until the numbers became like higher than 2,400 gallons a minute and greater than 5 degrees differential. So what we're doing here, what they're doing now, really has no difference on the receiving body water temperature. So I wanted to just point that out. Green is up. It really has no difference on the receiving body water temperature. So this slide on the right, you can see that's an image that was actually taken at UMass Dartmouth. They call it their SMass building. And they had similar problems, and almost every marine lab up and down the coast and throughout the country has the same problem. Those are mussels growing on the inside of the pipe. And the thing about mussels is, especially in your nutrient-rich water, they can grow extremely fast, as much as 2 inches in 1 year. So what happens when you only have a 5-inch diameter pipe or a 6-inch diameter pipe, and you start growing 2-inch mussels from every direction? Pretty soon there's nothing left in the middle for the water to flow through. That's suffocating the flow. What also it does for the pumps is it creates a tremendous friction loss. So let's say you have a boat, you like to sail, you like to power boat. You put on a biofouling paint, right, to keep mussels and tunicates and growth from growing on the bottom of your boat. If you don't, you get all that drag, right? You want to keep your bottom as clean as possible so your drag, you're as efficient as possible. Same thing for seawater systems. We want to get rid of the mussels because they are creating all sorts of friction losses for our pumps and wreaking havoc on them. So that's one of the other missions that we have as a directive to fix. The way we address that is we use 2 lines. And I think I've talked about this before. One line is called the active line. The other line is called the inactive line. You let the active line go for as long as you can, and you're watching gauges on your pumps, and when it reaches a certain pressure loss, you switch to the other system. And what you do is when you switch to the other system, the system you were using, the active system, becomes the inactive line. And what you do is you cut the water flow off to it. When you cut the water flow off to it, you cut the oxygen and you cut the food supply, and the mussels die. And it's you're not using any chemicals to control biofouling like you would for a boat where you're using anti-fouling paint to control biofouling growth. We do it in a very natural type way by just starving them of oxygen. And then when it's time to turn them back on, you flush out the dead mussels. Currently, what they're doing to address this, if any of you have gone by there, they have a dive company that's offshore, and they're using like a rotor-rooter system, and they're jamming it up from the seaward side up the pipe and breaking up all the mussel shells while backwashing it at the same time in an attempt to clear it. But they're doing this every 4 weeks, and that's disrupting the research and the scientists. So that's something we don't want to be happening down the road. I talked about the mussels creating system capacity loss. The other thing about lots of mussels in the suction line is it rattles the pumps. It's a phenomenon called cavitation. You're actually imploding bubbles on the impeller of the pump, and it's violent, and it destroys the pumps. And I think they go through maybe one pump or a pump every 18 months where they actually destroy it to the point it has to be replaced. And these are very expensive seawater pumps that probably cost upwards of $20,000 each. So we need to address that for them and minimize that type of situation. All right, so I guess that's my lecture on the existing seawater system. You all get an A if you. So I guess that's my lecture on the existing seawater. Can I answer that afterwards, Justin? I think that's where this is all leading. I am not sure of the process. You know, basically, from NIPD's permits is usually related to animal loading. Like you have aquaculture going on, a lot of animals. Let's say you had a shellfish farm, or you're raising finfish like salmon or something like that. And you have, I think the threshold is like 20,000 pounds of animals in your facility and a significant nitrogen load leaving the facility. Or you have a significant thermal impact on the receiving waters. Those usually dictate NIPD's permits. Or you have a significant thermal impact on the receiving I guess they want. Do you mind if we answer it later? Okay. You had that. All right. Fine enough. Well, we can ask more later. All right, sure. Okay. You had that. All right. Fine enough. Well, we can ask more later. All right, sure.
My name is Bob Schaffner with Payette Architects, and I've met you before at other open meetings where we presented the design for the building. My name is Bob Schaffner. Behind me is the site, as you're familiar with. And we talked about the restrictions on the site related to the buffer zones, et cetera, and we very much are concerned about staying within those boundaries. So just to speak a bit about the guiding principles for this project, since it began about 2 years ago. Number one was to integrate it within with the existing bunker research facility. That's the work that was happening in Murphy Bunker. The second was to preserve open space on the site. Third was to locate the building above anticipated future sea level rise. And then finally, that the height and massing would respond and live within zoning requirements. So the building is currently sited outside of wetlands and floodplain and above the anticipated future sea levels. So the building is currently sited outside of wetlands and floodplain and above the anticipated future sea levels. So the building is currently sited outside of wetlands and floodplain and above the anticipated future sea levels. So the building is currently sited outside of wetlands and floodplain. The main point of this was to build it on top of, in a sense, you've got an existing foundation, so much less disruption of virgin site. As you can see to the right side of this slide, there's a little bit, maybe 20 feet or so of disturbed area, but otherwise most of it sits up on top of the bunker. As you can see to the right side, the reason it does shift to the right on the slide is so that we could serve the building with mechanical infrastructure built underneath it. This was critical to keep the rooftop so that we could serve the building absolutely flat rooftop. That the building is intended to be nearly invisible from either the town side or the Lodge Park side. So by putting the mechanical space here, site plan. And a couple of noteworthy things related to the site plan are that we're looking at new or expanded water, sewer, a couple of noteworthy electric and telecommunication utilities to the site plan done completed within already previously disturbed areas. Sewer, a couple of noteworthy. We also have a new stormwater management system designed in accordance with the Mass DEP stormwater management standards. We also have new ecological improvements proposed to restore and enhance plant and wildlife habitat. We also have looking to minimize impact on the East Meadow, and we're staying away entirely from the North Gunport near the coastal. Looking to minimize impact on the East Meadow. We're looking to screen the building largely on both the east and the west, and I think I'll pop back to the cross section just to remind you minimize impact on the east. You've got the existing grading on the left side of the slide, both the part that aims towards town. And on the right side, we're looking to grade that up. You've got the near the base of that floor level, so that we can put the proper planting into screening on that side as well, so that from Lodge Park, the building becomes largely invisible. So that we can put the proper planting into. We also are aiming to achieve a gold, LEED Gold certification for this project. The university is quite. We also are aiming to achieve a gold, LEED Gold certified.
That will work, and the promise is that we'll take out the existing lines that don't work. So I think that will work. That's like a one-for-one swap. The promise is that we'll take out the existing lines that don't work. A lot of the people object to the appearance of the seawater lines as they go under the seawall, and then they appear up on the beach during low tide. A lot of the people object that will disappear because we're going to directly bore the seawater lines till, and they can't be seen on the lowest of tides during low tide. Make an appearance. That will disappear because we're going to directly bore the seawater lines. They'll run out to the intake structures in a different location than the existing seawater structures because we can't disturb the seawater lines until the new ones are operational. So they're heading off in a different direction. The existing seawater structures because we can't disturb the seawater lines. The other thing that you should be aware of is this system is going to draw in fewer animals than the existing system. That you should be aware of is this system is going to draw in fewer animals. It all has to do with intake velocity. You should be aware. And the reason is these little critters are floating around or swimming around the ocean, kind of doing their thing. It has to do with intake velocity. If you have a high intake velocity, it's going to grab them. It's like a vacuum cleaner. When you take a vacuum cleaner's nozzle and you stick it close to the dirt, it draws in that dirt. Intake velocity is going to grab them. It's like a vacuum cleaner. Intake system, you same thing, but you want to design it with the lowest intake velocities possible. Basically, things that are swimming are going to swim by it, and things that get really close to it, you can't design it with the lowest intake velocity. But one of the biggest concerns was lobstermen. Get really close to it. They were concerned that we were inhaling their planktonic. One of the biggest concerns was we did a lot of research, my partner did, on this very issue, inhaling to educate ourselves as possible. And what we learned about lobstermen, we did a lot of research, is they have 4 primary stages before what they call settle out into the gravel or into the bottom. Stage 1 is after they hatch. So the female's carrying the eggs, they hatch, and what the first thing they do is they're attracted to sunlight. So they stage 1 is up to the surface after they hatch. And for the first maybe week or 10 days, they stay at the surface. Thing they do is they're attracted to sunlight. So they stage 1 is to the surface. They can't be inhaled. And this is the first stage is when they don't swim very fast at all. Then they go into a second stage, and a third stage, and each time they're going into a different stage, they're molting. when they don't, almost like a, you know, a butterfly goes through different stages. It's a caterpillar stage, and each time they're going into a different stage, there's different stages that these things are doing. They go through different stages. They're either going up and down in the column in stage 2 and 3. But when they go to stage 4, they go back up to the surface. So again, in stage 4, they come down in the column in stage 2 and 3. What we've tried to do here, unlike the existing system, is minimize that slot capture stage 2. So that's right. What we've tried to do here, unlike the existing system, and you try to put enough slots in there so you're evenly spreading out the intake velocity. So it's not like a vacuum cleaner nozzle where you're going like this. It's spread out over a huge area or as large an area the intake velocity. So it's not like a minimum vacuum cleaner nozzle where you're going like this. It's spread out over a huge area. Worried about is what's called impingement velocity. So that's not like a minimum vacuum cleaner nozzle mesh screen like this. Protects the intake. That mesh is usually about half-inch mesh. And what you don't want to do there is capture things that will mostly affect the pumps, but it's like little fish, jellyfish, and what you don't want to do there is capture. And what you don't want to do is have that come by and all of a sudden grab like little fish on the mesh jellyfish, and what you don't want to do there. That's even what you don't want to do is have that come by and all of a sudden grab like regulations are set and mesh by the Division of Marine Fisheries. That's even what you don't want to do is have to be less than 0.5 feet per second. And we're just set and mesh by the Division of Marine Fisheries. That's even what you don't want to. If you look at the left of the screen, you can kind of see where the existing intakes are. I wish I had a laser pointer, but I don't. Or do I? If you look at the left of the screen, you can kind of see where the existing intakes are. I wish I had a laser pointer, but I don't. All right, that's the existing intakes. And they're not really that far from the seawall. 100 feet off the shore. And what we're doing is we're taking ours and we're putting them out a little bit further. This nicer water. We have to worry about the surf zone, especially around here. And what we're doing is we're taking ours, we're also looking for good, clean bottom structure, so we're not going to get a lot of fouling. We have to worry about the surf zone, especially around here. What we're doing, these are probably 200 feet apart, good, clean bottom structure, so we're not going to get a system right now. These are probably, that right there is probably 100 feet, like further from the beach. 100 feet? Yeah, there's some rocks when you look right from the seawall. You can see some rocks right in here. 100 feet. And then there's another set of rocks further out. Rocks when you, yeah, so it's about, I would say, halfway between the two sets of rocks. Okay. So, it's about reason that we located them there was there's a nice gravelly bottom. It's away from the existing intakes and it's out of the surf zone. So that was the reason that site was selected. There's a nice gravelly bottom by us. It also does this kind of out of the surf zone. So that was the reason and that's because there's a lot of bedrock underneath there that we're trying to avoid. It also does this kind of out of the surf zone. So that was the reason and that's because there's a lot of bedrock underneath there that we're trying to avoid. It also does this kind of so that was the reason, and that's because there's a lot of bedrock underneath there that would sure. It also does this kind of so that was it's 14 now because remember it used to be 2,400 gallons a minute. It's ratcheted down to 600 gallons. It's 14 now because remember it used to be 2,400 gallons a minute. I don't have it ratcheted down right now. I apologize, but I can tell you it's 14. It's 14 now. Okay. It's just proportional to the flow rate. The outfall, I apologize. Okay, right now it goes right through the seawall, and if any of you went on the tour today, you kind of saw it eroding the beach. There was like a little mini Grand Canyon going on there. Okay, right now it goes really favorable. If any of you went on the tour today, you kind of saw it eroding the beach. And these, I think I might have going on there. That's right here. So the seawater leaves the laboratory this way, and then it's coming up this way in four what we call diffusers or jet nozzles. And what that's supposed to do is aid in the mixing. So rather than a point discharge, which might have an effect in a very small area, this helps diffuse the effluent. And your biggest concern on the effluent was a temperature gradient. And what we had is that four-mix model that we talked about earlier. And your biggest concern on the effluent was a temperature and find out what the impact. And what we had, there was a 1 degree water change or a 2 degree water change or a 3 degree water change. What is the impact on that zone? Because some of you were thinking that this outfall system is actually warming the cove, the entire cove, and affecting the lobster habitat there. And we found that that's, I'm sorry, but the outfall system is actually warming the cove. It has a very minimal effect in that area. And especially now that we've ratcheted all the way down to 600 gallons a minute, the impact is even significantly less. It has a very minimal effect in that area. This is a profile view. And especially now that we've ratcheted all the way down to 600 gallons a minute, the impact is even significantly less. And then underground and coming out, like I told you, is a low now that we've ratcheted all the way down to 600 gallons a minute, the impact is precast concrete structures like you do now into the new pump house. And I know now that we've ratcheted all the way down to 600 gallons a minute, the impact is precast concrete structures like you do now. I know there's been some comments about, and I know why the new pump house is so large. You know, it's a very big build. I know there's been some comments about, and I know why the new pump house is so large. You know, it's a pump house is so large. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and the most significant reason is safety. You know, as a designer and an engineer, I'm obligated to make it a safe working. There's a lot of reasons for it, and atmosphere in place for